This week on the Marauders, we're going to be talking about books! Okay guys, my top 10 favorite books will probably be different in like a week because I'll probably be reading another book by then and I'll think it's fantastically awesome. So this isn't necessarily my top 10 favorite books, it's my top 10 really good books that I like right now at the moment today. The first book I'm going to show you guys is one I actually read on my Kindle, so I don't have an actual book to show you, but it's Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, sorry. It's really fantastic and I'm really super excited for the movie, not just because it has Emma Watson in it, but just because I really liked the book. And since I have 10 books to talk about, I'm going to keep these brief or else this is going to be like a full-length movie. The next book on my top 10 really good books is 1984 by George Orwell. And I know that you have this one too, Allie, but this one is absolutely fantastic. I read it in 9th grade English and it really, I think this book really made me super crazy like dystopian society-esque novels because I think this is basically the mother of all dystopian futures, past, science-esque, that. And another dystopian-esque future-ish novel is, well, Pretties by Scott Westerfeld, but I mean just like the entire Uglies series in general. I would show you Uglies, but I lent it to my friend a couple years ago and she accidentally ripped the cover off, so I'm going to show you Pretties today. So we have Pretties, and it takes place in the future, but I know at least Olivia's read it, I don't know if Allie's read it. They're really fantastic, and it's like super dystopian, but very weird and dystopian. Very original dystopian. I really like it. And Allie, you just texted me last night that you finished Anne and the French Kiss, but it's just so good. This is definitely one of the first times that I've read a novel that I really connected to the characters, because it takes place in Paris, a city that I absolutely adore. And then there's Etienne, who is like French and English, and as Anna was falling in love with Etienne, so was I, and it was really good, and I really liked it. And as Maureen Johnson said about it, it's very sly, very funny, very romantic. You should date this book. Seriously. Back to dystopia! Now this isn't just necessarily the Hunger Games book, I mean the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins. They're so good, and seriously, I know that you two have read them, but anyone else watching this, if anyone else is watching this, if you haven't read this, you're crazy. You need to read this book. It's just, I mean, like Allie said, this takes place in the future, so I mean, sure, maybe this could happen, that there is such dystopia in the future of North America that this could be our foreseeable future, or non-foreseeable future, depending on how you look at things, but anyway. And then we have Looking for Alaska by John Green. This isn't actually the first John Green book that I read Paper Towns first, but then I read this. And I love Paper Towns, but this one I just really liked. I think part of it might be that it's his first book, but I don't know. I'm really bad at explaining things. I'm really sorry, but I just really liked this book. I love how all of your explanations are really coherent, Allie, and mine are just like, it's a really good book, you should read it. Alright, so when I was down in Florida, I bought Leviathan by Scott Westerfeld, like the Ugly series. And just because I saw him talk at LeakyCon, and I was like, I should read this book, because I'd been kind of wanting to read it, but not really had read it yet. But it actually, it's kind of dystopian, but not really, because it takes place in the past. It takes place during World War I, but it's like an alternate history in that Britain and their allies are Darwinists in that they fabricate animals and use them to fight. And then Germany and their allies are clankers, and they use mechanics and walkers and like robot type things, but not really robots. And it's really interesting. I just finished the second one called Behemoth, I don't know how to pronounce it per se, but the next one comes out I believe next month. It's called Goliath, and I'm really looking forward to it. So there's that. And once again, back to dystopia, we have Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, which I just read for the first time this past year. And it's just really interesting because it takes place in the future where books are bad and people burn them and it's illegal to have books. And it was just really interesting because I love books so much that a future in which books are discouraged and looked down upon, especially in today's society where Kindles and e-readers are becoming increasingly prevalent, that it's not so much a far-fetched idea as it was when he originally wrote it. Okay, second to last, we have The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. It takes place during the time of the Holocaust, but it doesn't focus around the Holocaust. Like, sure, like death and Hitler and like Jews and all of those bad people that Hitler thought was bad and put in concentration camps, like that's not really the main focus of the book, but it definitely impacts this book, and it's very interesting the way it's written because it has a very interesting narrator, and I really like this book, so if you haven't read it, you should read it. And last but not least, we have the one, the only, Harry Potter. So this is the Harry Potter series in general, just like the Uglies and Hunger Games and Leviathan, but I think Deathly Hallows is my favorite book just because when I read it, they were the closest to my age. I think that was a big part of it, because when I read all the other ones, I was still younger than them, and this one I was still younger than them. So I was 14 when this came out, so I was still younger than them, but I was definitely closer in age than I ever had been, and so that was really cool. But also just because it's the last one, kind of like how I like Looking for Alaska best, at least partially because it's John Green's first book, I kind of like this one because it's the last, and I think that Joe Rowling did a absolutely fantastic job of wrapping up the series in this book.
My camera stopped recording. But you know what, that's okay because I was basically done anyway, so those are my top 10 really good books that I really like right now, at the moment, today. So, there you have it. Olivia, I really hope that you get your videos because I like to see them, because I love you. So anyway, I think that's it. See y'all later. Mischief managed.